John, what's up, bud?
What's up, man?
Good
How
to
you
see
doing?
you.
Good to see you
Thanks
too.
for coming in. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Good. So let's get right into it. When did we meet? We met,
Last year.
was it last year?
Yeah. The conversations at least started. We flew out to Texas. Was that last year?
Yes, it had to be, right? Where are we now? We're in March. Yeah, it had to be last
Yeah,
year.
that was last year.
Had to be. Had to be like November or maybe October, November. I guess
Yeah.
it was.
It's been a long time in the making, I guess.
That's right. Remember that cab ride?
Yeah, that cab ride was fucking phenomenal.
That was insane. That guy, he was nuts.
That's a cab ride we can't say here.
Yeah, no, you can't. Oh, we could. Julia just has to edit it and need it. So
It was phenomenal. That was in Texas. That was when we landed. He had been holding in for a long time what he was gonna say. We were talking about. I'm actually okay kind of talking about that, I guess. But it was about. I think we got in a conversation about where America was heading, and I think it was about my tattoos. And people were.
That's right.
People were. We were talking about how they were conceiving me as one thing, and I said I'm not so sensitive about it. You can say whatever you want, or you can judge me on my looks. And he said, that's good. I'm glad that, America isn't so, because nowadays you never know with he, him, she, they, and he went off. And this was a guy, he was of a religion.
That's right.
Right?
Remember, I asked him, where you from? He points to the thing, and obviously it's Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Says a big Afghanistan flag. And
Yeah, he was a spirited guy. There's no doubt.
He was scarred. And then wasn't it like, didn't one of them say his name or something like that? When we got there, you met so-and-so, so I guess he's known as the Uber driver. I think it was Jason.
Jason,
Said
yeah.
something like, oh my, you met whatever his name was. And we were rolling because they came out. We were hysterical laughing, the four of us, because we were talking that. That was the first day we met for breakfast, and then we went into it. So, and ever since then, it's been that much fun. I have had a ball so far, which is great. I got to learn a lot from you and learn about you. So why don't we start with telling everybody where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Denmark. And we've spoken a lot about this, so we'll talk into that. But I grew up in Denmark. I lived in Denmark until I was 12, 13, and then I moved to Chicago after that. My dad had gotten a job. He works in sort of security, firemen, stuff like that, safety equipment, basically. He sells to the army and stuff like that. He used to always take me on these big trips, but basically, whenever I would get in trouble. But we moved to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for...
You were living with dad at the time? Or?
Yeah, I was living with dad, and mom. So the whole family moved over, my sister too.
Okay.
And stayed there for about 2-3 years myself. And I liked Chicago. It was a great city, but I think at that point I had gotten into modeling. I went to a music festival, actually, and Ford Models had scouted me at a music festival in Chicago.
So how old are you now, 15?
14.
14, okay.
Yeah, because I moved when I was 12, yeah.
Yep.
And this was probably freshman year in high school. And then Ford
So you're going to
Models-
school in the States?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to 8th grade when I moved here, first year, and then I went to freshman year afterwards.
So before we go anywhere, what's the difference in between schools in Denmark compared to the States?
It's a world's difference. There's no grades. There's no grade system at all. There's no grades until you hit 9th grade. So until then, it's parent-teacher conference, basically. So that's as bad as it can get. It's your parents coming in and they get told that you're being not great.
So that had happened a lot with you, I guess.
That was the worst that could happen. But school or life in Denmark in general, it was very different.
Easier, right?
Easier, but I also had a lot more freedom. When I got here in 8th grade and it was soda parties and pizza and curfews, I was used to drinking and going out and doing things like that, right?
In Denmark?
In Denmark, yeah. Because there's almost zero crime. So, and when you learn to drink, for example, you learn that in the house. So that's with your parents and with your friends' parents. When someone's throwing a party, that's usually your parents are upstairs. But it's not a limiting factor. It's like that's just how it's supposed to be because we're not old to do that. And you can buy beer when you're 15. So you can buy soft 15, 16, I think. Don't hold me to that. But I think 16, yeah. That's when you can buy soft liquor, and then hard liquor is 18. So you can drink beer and like 6%, 8% stuff, and then hard liquor when you're 18.
So 15, you're drinking beers. hanging out.
Yeah.
So like every American kid too.
Every American kid, but I'm doing it in it's like a more controlled environment, right? Like it's
Sure.
not a get a crack. it's not get a crackhead from the corner and go buy liquor. It's you get it from your parents and you do it in an environment that's set up to be that, right? Whereas here you get it from some guy and you drink it in a place where there's no supervision and shit happens. So that was going on.
Wow.
But then I got over here and it was all soda parties and it was just very different from that age group, right?
Sure.
Because I had a lot of freedom and they hadn't have. And everyone had to be in by 10 and I had been used to being out till 4 and walking home in the morning, getting in fights and all types of shit, right? And
that's awesome.
yeah, I loved it. But now
sounds like how I grew up in the 80s, in the
exactly.
70s,
whenever I hear stories from not from a different time, a different generation, it sounds more similar to how I grew up.
It is.
You know?
Because I think my generation would be similar to you guys. I was probably getting into clubs when I was 13, 14.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy now.
It
Me
does,
looking back at it, or I see a 13-year-old today, it's crazy. Like, I wouldn't think that me at that age would be able to.
Think about what we're doing at that age compared to what they are today.
If I had kids, they wouldn't be doing that.
No, either do my kids, obviously. At least I hope not. But that's interesting, though. Okay, so you 13, you move, 12, you move here. 13, 14.
Yep.
You get discovered by Ford, you said?
Yeah, I got discovered by Ford models. At that time, I didn't really know what that was. Right?
So how'd that happen?
I was at a concert. I was at a music concert, and I was literally walking
With mom
around.
And dad?
No, I was out and about because again, I had brought that freedom from Denmark over here, so I was given a lot of freedom. Still, even though I was in America, and I had a couple of friends here, and I guess in America, since it's a little more strict, the friends that had a lot of freedom around me weren't the best of
course,
best, right? Because they had a lot of freedom, but not because they necessarily wanted it, because parents weren't really much around. So we
what
were
part
at
of Chicago are you in now? Are you in because there's different parts of Chicago, obviously. I'm not saying bad and good, but there's bad and good, right? Like New York and.
Chicago's a little different where you can be in the best neighborhood in the city, and then a block over you can be in a really, really bad neighborhood.
Tough area.
Yeah, so it's a little different in that sense, but there's also the south side of Chicago, but you just don't go there.
So the south side's the tough area.
Yeah, and that's we don't go there at all. But the city or the school, freshman year, I had gone to a private school, and I'd gotten kicked out very early in the year. And then the only school that would want me, the only school that wanted me was this public school that we could be in, and where we lived, right? And that public school.
Well, they didn't want you; they just had to take you.
They had to take me. But that school had a mix of, because the area, it was one of the highest earning areas in Chicago. It's called Old Town. It's right by downtown. But there was a block called Cabrini Greens that was very, very bad. That was also within that school radius. Wow. So it was a mix of wealthy kids and projects, right? So it was an interesting group of people.
It would be.
And
put them together, look out.
Yeah,
look out.
and then, there was, guns in the school and metal detectors, all types of shit. But I had a mixed group where, like, I had my foot in both worlds, kind of, right?
Okay.
I definitely got into some things that I shouldn't have, and school was just never my thing. I never liked school. I respect people immensely who can do school and who follow through with that. But for me, I knew here is an avenue where I can make a lot of money and I can go to New York and live by myself, right? I had been modeling a little bit at that point, and I had met a girlfriend who was a couple of years older than me. And
so let's stay on that. Oh, you're now, you're 14 now? 14,
15, yeah.
So you get discovered.
Yeah.
So what is that like? You're walking through this concert and they just...
Yeah, they came up to me and was like, you're good looking kind of thing. And they gave me a card. And then I got home and I told my parents about it. And
Mom, Dad, this guy was checking me out, told me I was good looking.
basically,
Model. Okay.
And my dad had known about like Ford models and shit, and so did my mom. And I quickly was like, yeah, I'm full on in, go for it. And then there was a lot of pretty women involved also. So I got down to the office and I started going to castings, did some photo shoots. I think in Chicago it was like Cole, Sears, those kinds of bigger, it wasn't like fashion, right?
Yep.
And
so
at
you're
that
doing
point,
like magazine?
Yeah, and I had no tattoos at that point. I had one, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got one. My first tattoo I got in Denmark. Yeah.
At 12?
Yeah, at 12. It was here in my palm, actually.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Now it's fully worn down. That's a different story, but on what it said. But yeah, I got that super early too. Thinking back on it, I was very young for a lot of these situations.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I loved it. I loved the fashion world, and I loved sort of what it came with, the going out and being, sort of in a spotlight, so to speak.
So what is that like I guess looking back at it today, 14 years old, and you get discovered, and you're looking at that, right? You see, at least I see it with any of these kid like stars, and only a select few I think really made it where they came out sane, right? Somewhat sane, right?
Yeah.
Why is that? I guess because the parents aren't really, I'm saying mom and dad, but they're not really paying attention. They just trust, and is that what it is?
I think so, and I think there's a bunch of people taking advantage, right?
Yeah,
I was big at my age, and I had gotten in some fights and stuff back in Denmark, so I was never
so you could hold yourself
touched. Yeah. But I do think there's an aspect to that, right? And there's a lot of like we were going to these nightclubs in Chicago at 15, right? And mixing in with a crowd that was otherwise
have to be in their 20s, right?
Yeah, exactly, or 30s, and we were meeting a lot of people. The network was already growing back then, right? But I think that becomes too much to handle, right? Drugs and everything else. And if you go for that long, most people that get famous or rich in their 20s or 30s, they have a span of 5 years of doing that and then it's over.
Yeah.
But these kid people, like these kid actors and individuals, they do it since, very, very young for a decade, then you get burned out. I think that's the case for most of it, Yeah, I had an aspect of it that I also sort of got burned out on, right? But yeah, I think that's the case.
So what is that life like as a 14-year-old kid? You still going to school at the time, or you're not?
I was doing online school. When I had gotten arrested. I got arrested a couple of times, and then modeling came along, and I just said, school is not for me, so I'm just dumping it.
So you get your GED and your
no GED, no high school diploma, no nothing.
Just go out there and
just go for it.
Okay.
So I still to this day don't have a higher education than high school.
Wow.
Not even high school, right? Elementary school, technically.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You did okay for yourself?
I did.
So, you can't complain.
Yeah, I think for me, and I don't recommend that to anyone, it's not like go out and dip it. I recommend doing school, but I had a vision in my mind and like a path I saw that I could take, and I took it, right? And there's a lot of risk in that,
Absolutely.
The high school diplomas, college, all that stuff, it opens a lot of doors, right? Not that it opens a lot of doors, actually, it just doesn't shut any. It doesn't shut a lot, right?
That's good, yeah.
Because even nowadays, there's people that have worked for me in the past from Harvard, right? And I think the average salary or something from Harvard graduate is $90K a year, which is not a lot in today's day and age, right? That's for Harvard graduates.
That's insane.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
But not that matters. I'm still big for school and all that other stuff. For me, it just never, it also never came up.
Well, yeah, why was that? Was it just the end thing, or was it more like, hey, I just don't like it, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do something I like, and that independence just carried you through? And
I think school was something I was forced to do a lot of the ways, right? And subjects was something that I was forced to do a lot of the ways. I went to a really good school in Denmark, which is called the Mensa Institute. And the Mensa Institute, they have them worldwide. And it's you score very high on RQs and stuff like that, and you get put into these schools. So I did that, and I did that in Denmark.
So that's interesting, though, too. I'm sorry to cut you off, but you're in top school. You're obviously educated. It's not like you're an idiot. I don't mean that in a bad way or whatever. It's a smart guy, but you just didn't like school.
Yeah, I didn't think I was. I still, and I'm trying not to shoot down schools.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, we're not doing that.
I knew I
just
had
wasn't for you.
Yeah, it wasn't for me, and I knew I could learn other skill sets. Right? It wasn't that I didn't want to learn and just stop learning. I just knew these kinds of skill sets was
useless for you.
Yeah, it's not the skill sets that I need to take this path. Right. So if I did that, I would have wasted.
What path are we looking to go now? We're looking to go to modeling, acting.
Yeah, this was modeling, acting, and really at that point I was more so thinking just network. I was already seeing, and this is maybe a shallow way of looking at it, but I was already seeing what these networks were allowing me to do. And this was at 15, right? I could get in between, I could get into clubs, I could get in front of people, I could do these little things that sort of clicked, and it brought a mindset where I could sort of, if I know all these different people in all these different sectors, it can allow me to move in the world that's very specific. And there isn't really there's not a format to that, but there isn't like an education towards that, right?
I remember when we were sitting there, myself, you, Matt, and I can't think of his name, your buddy that was with us.
Colin.
Yeah, we were sitting there, and I remember Gary digging into this.
Yeah.
And he was just as amazed at this. We were sitting there digging into it. And so keep going. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're
This is
fine.
really interesting.
I think that's when that started, right? It was the fact that I saw a big,
Like, wow, what makes you see networking? Like, I didn't see networking until, God, I was 30 years old, and I realized what it did in this world. What coming off the police department and going into real estate, and that's something that you have to do. So what makes you see that at 14, 15 years old? Like, what?
I think it was like nightlife, literally. It was just what other people could do for me. That the fact that if I didn't know this bouncer, I didn't know this owner, I couldn't have gotten in. Yeah, and I couldn't have gotten. I started seeing it.
But how'd you realize that? Like at that age, like, okay, let me hang out with the bouncers and the owners. Was it told to you by your other friends, the older group, or was
no?
it
It's a
just
good
something you picked
question.
up?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just picked it up. I saw it with modeling jobs too, where you can't train to be pretty. That's not, you can't get prettier.
Right.
And I saw sort of everyone. We all look the same. Why the fuck is this guy getting picked, or why am I getting picked over these people, right?
So I saw.
I thought it was, but there's sort of this entry level, right, where everyone could fucking be in this magazine and put on a clothes, and that would be that, right? But it was really just whoever liked you more. If the casting director liked this person over the other person, they would get picked, right? And I saw that, I think, too. So everything just sort of started clicking in that sense. If you can get people to like you, you can get people to do a lot of things for you, right? And vice versa. So I think that's when that really clicked. And I then took that to New York, right? Once the nightlife in Chicago had sort of gotten to its maximum, or my network had gotten, and it sounds crazy because I was young, but it felt like I knew the right connectors in the city where this was sort of, if I needed anything ever, I could go to them, and this was the max of it. And then I had gotten a girlfriend who was...
So how big is, stay in Chicago for a second, how big is Chicago at this point? Like,
Chicago's big. I mean, at this point, it was John Cote, who's... sort of helped me in that group and that crowd. He was the owner of Akira clothing store. It's a big chain clothing store in Chicago. He owned a couple of nightclubs, and he sort of took me under his wing. And he introduced me to a lot of different people. We sports teams, the Bulls, a bunch of players, all types of stuff, right? And that's when I first really got the taste for that. He would host parties, host runways, stuff like that. And that was becoming pretty big to a point where we would be co-hosting it, and we were getting sponsorships from liquor deals or brands, whatever it may be, to put them in here, right?
is that what gave you the ideas about when me and you talk about the sponsorships? And
Yeah.
is that where you got it from?
Yeah, I guess. To dumb it down a little bit, yeah. That's where at least some of that started, right? I think Chicago to this day, I would love to go back and do something more there because there's a lot of opportunity there. But Chicago is commercial, it's industry, right? It's very money, it's very material. It's not really fashion creative. Not just fashion, but creative. It's not innovative. It's Chicago, right? But cool city. I had a lot of fun.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Right? I drove through it. I've never been there. It's one of those cities that I'm
you
definitely
gotta spend some
Yeah,
time
I'm
there.
definitely going.
Yeah,
I
it's
want to try to
nice.
get there this summer possibly. Because I went last summer. I had to go to Indiana.
Yeah.
I flew into Chicago, and I was like, I got to stop, but I couldn't
How's
stop.
Keller out there?
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll introduce you to the
Is that something
regional
we
director.
can...
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that in a minute. I'm still fascinated about your story here. So you're 15, and now when do you move to New York?
I moved that year. That same.
Oh, so at
year.
15.
At 15, yeah. So I moved that same year.
Is it just to work?
It was work, and then this girlfriend that I had, she was a little bit older. She was 18, 19, and she was big modeling over here, and she already had a place. I could come live with her. My buddy Dorian could sleep on her couch, and
just
and
a life.
that was that. Yeah.
15 so does a stupid question, right? And I guess I know the answer to this, but I guess for everybody else, does mom and dad sign off on this, or is it just fuck it, I'm going?
Nah, they didn't. They did in the beginning, right? But they signed off on me leaving. Like it's not because girls. They had a Ford modeling apartment which was run by Fords, and it was all girls, and there was a house mom for people that were under 18. So they had to check in with her at night and all that other stuff. But we would then come pick them up later at like 1 a.m. and
When
take them
house
all
mom
with
is
us to
sleeping
the
and-
club. Yeah, exactly. The boys, they didn't have a modeling apartment. So it was just sort of, if you were out, you were there. You were in New York. So we didn't have a modeling apartment. And
But did all the guys stay together?
yeah, so they didn't have that for the guys. They only had it for the girls.
But I know. But did you guys still group together or no?
No, not really, because I had the girlfriend and my buddy Dorian.
He's also a model? Or?
Yeah, he was also a model at that. He still is, actually. And he came with me, and he had lived with me in Chicago for a little bit. We grew up together in that way. But we moved out here at the same time.
Was he also from Denmark or no?
No, he's from Chicago.
Okay.
His dad actually was one of the bigger music producers for like Suge Knight and Eminem and all those big.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Interesting story. Ended up dying, but
That sucks.
he came too, and it was sort of the same for him. He didn't, school wasn't his thing, and we both got on this He was with me that day. He got scouted as well. So we just up and moved. That was it.
Okay, so now you're in New York.
Yeah. New York was big.
Okay.
We loved it though, because this girlfriend that I had, she was a Victoria's Secret model, so she was in New York. That's like,
Top of the line,
yeah.
right?
And then she really brought us to her network, right? Introduced us to sort of the club scene and the promoters there, and we quickly got taken under the wing of these guys. These guys were sort of the top of the line in the nightlife, right? It's sort of like Leonardo DiCaprio. Anyone would sit at that table, right? And so there was a guy that would bring the celebrities, there was a guy that would bring the sports stars, and there was a guy that would bring the models. Isaiah, Tance, and Steven. And this was One Oak, up and down. Richie Akiva is the owner of that. But those were sort of the spots to be. So we were amazed by this, right? We came and they picked us up. I remember they had like a promoter car that would come we would go to dinner at 10. And it was all
crazy.
paid for and everything, right? Because the dinner, the restaurant wants a bunch of pretty people in there dining.
Sure.
So it was all paid for. And
That's why I always get it for free.
Exactly. We were just at the diner. They comped it.
Get that amazing service.
Yeah.
They brought us extra pickles and coleslaw.
Little different, but no, I was amazed by it, and I'm like, how is this all free? And there's so many girls, and because it was 3 guys and then 10 model
women,
girls,
yeah.
right? And then so it was amazing for us.
Wow.
And then at 1, we would go pick up all the girls from that modeling apartment, and then go to the club, and the club would sort of like water separate, right? The line would
Sure.
flood out, and we would walk right in, and you felt,
Was like did you involve like when May Days was the Limelight, the Underground?
it was fucking,
Tunnel?
it was crazy,
Was it
right?
the same clubs?
But
or
we
was
could
it-
pull up in the car, and like they would make a room for everyone, and we would walk straight in. And this
Okay.
was all the different clubs and different nights. It would go from here to here to here, because they were all paying different amounts for us going.
Oh, you were actually getting paid to be
We were
there.
getting paid, yeah. At that stage, we weren't. Me and Dorian, we just came to the
Just hang
promoter's
out.
game was that we were there to entertain the girls also, because there's a lot of girls, so they need some guys to come out with them too.
So you just got the free ride.
We were just
drinking,
getting a
and-
free ride, basically. And along with that came
Not
this.
bad at 15.
No, it was amazing.
Wow.
It was great.
That's pretty cool.
But it's every night, right? And the network, that was great, right? Because every celebrity you can sort of imagine was there, right? And it was at our
Sure.
table. And once they have that, Richie and me and Isaiah and Steven and Tans, it was sort of like when any other celebrity at any other point wanted to go out with you, they would contact either one of you guys if they wanted a night out here or in LA or elsewhere, because they knew you had a group of people and access to get these elite/VIP tables at the clubs, right? So now they would think of you as one of them. And I started doing that for like a year or so until they really took me under their wing. I wasn't modeling a lot. It wasn't working out. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do this. And there was a lot more money in it, truth be told. And then I started doing it every night. And sort of I really became, that was my job, basically, right? And that was
That's
all
interesting.
network. That was all network, right? I met anyone that was anyone from any other industry.
I was going to say, who's the most interesting person that you met back in those days? Not
I don't
today,
know.
back
Yeah,
then.
I don't know. Interesting is a hard one because I think we put ideas in our heads about these celebrities that, you know,
Sure.
they're crazy individuals. They're not. A lot of them aren't, right? They're just regular people. But
That don't want to be seen, too, right?
yeah, yeah. That was the good thing about those spots was that it was all that, right? So there wasn't a lot of regular people around there. It was our regular people. There wasn't a lot
I get
of
what you mean.
non-celebrities, I
Yep.
guess. But it was a great time. There was a lot of shit involved, but there was also a bunch of drugs, right? There was a bunch of drugs, and that was early on, right? So that was early in the 16, 17 at that point. But that got old quickly, right? Because
Sure.
you had to, now it's a job. You have to go out. The fun sort of started
I was
fading
going to say,
away.
it has to get boring after a
Yeah.
while, right? Not boring, but just
Oh, for sure.
tiring.
For sure. I think interesting wise,
Like, was it more the actors that you enjoyed hanging with, or was it the baseball players, the
I
football
think
players?
for us it was like the artists. It was the up and coming people. There was a couple of people that really got helped by this crowd that we were in. One is Travis Scott. Travis Scott, who is a big rapper now. He was a nobody when he first started coming to the club, and then we would take him under our wing basically, and he would perform at the club. And now he has access to this world of individuals that are the highest influencers, the highest celebrities. You perform with them and go out with them for a week, and this is the crazy part. That makes your whole life, right? So he went from nothing to huge. And when they do that, Richie was the main guy here. He would take percentages of their careers, basically. So he was a manager in a sense. So he could gather all the right people in one table and say, I have this guy, he's an upcoming da-da-da, and make him something, right? Because you have individuals from everywhere.
So back then, how long ago are we talking?
This was, what would that have been? I'm 28 now, so this was like 10 years ago.
10 years. You're 28, damn, you're still a baby.
Yeah.
God bless you. That's awesome. So, wow. So with these guys and gals coming up, you know, like back in the day when I was growing up, they were all getting taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same as today, or is it a little bit different now for them? I would assume they're a little bit more protected at this stage of the game.
They are,
you're
but
going
also no, right? But I think there's like an underwritten, and I hate to say this, but everyone there knew what they were doing. You know that if you're going to a certain thing and everything is free, let's say, you know, they'll say we're throwing a party in Dubai next week. You send a private plane, come out here and do all these things. There's some sort of exchange there. That's sort of a gray area, right? But no one does anybody just favors for fun, right? So if this guy, which would be a client or a celebrity, and they would pay for a group of people to come out there and very lavishly, or buy them bags and watches and whatever else it may be, right? There would be some kind of exchange, which is
Whatever it is,
right? But that was never like formalized, I guess. Wow. But I don't think there was any. At least in my circle of people, there wasn't anyone that was really taking advantage, right? There was...
I guess financially.
Financially, yeah, for sure. But financially, it was mainly the guys that had the bandwidth to be taken advantage of, so that was fine.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of people who got caught in it, which is what you were saying earlier, where you saw someone that had a lot of potential, and they came into this almost fake reality of... you are now at the top of the world, which you aren't. You're just in a nightclub around with the people who are on the top of the world, but you are not, right? But that can quickly make you forget that outside of the club, you're not here where these other individuals are, right? And they're just coming for one night. You're going there every day, and that's becoming your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's your home.
Yeah, and that cranks you up quickly, and sort of there's some pretty gnarly stories there where they come in and you get spit out, right? And there's a lot of younger models and actors and people that would come into the city, bright eyes, 15, 18, and they'd be told you come to the table with all these celebrities that they've always looked up to, and then it's something completely different, right? Something pretty dark quickly, right?
Wow.
And then they have to leave eventually because New York. Shit is expensive, right? And they get too caught up in that. They don't go to castings. They're waking up at 2 because they were out till 2, stuff like that.
So now... like you hear, like, and I guess it's silly for me, right? But struggling actors, they're mostly waiters, bartenders, and they're doing that kind of work, right? Because they're looking to get their next gig. Like, and I've talked to quite a few people, like a couple people that I know that were on All My Children and those shows. and they say once they make it, once they get casted, they think, like you just said, that it's now going to be rainbows and sunshines for the rest of their life, and it's not like that.
Yeah.
Second, they figured it was funny. Not funny, but one of the people I was talking to a couple of weeks ago, she said she got casted. She was on this show. They told her she's got a life there. She's going to be a main character, and 2 weeks later, they killed her off.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah, that's what she said. Somebody better looking came along, or somebody better came along. It was better actress or actress, and they did what they had to do. It was a storyline, whatever it was. But how, like...
It's interesting that world, like you say, because I think a lot of people think that it takes less work and it takes less... like, there is no overnight success in neither of these. They might have been working outside of the spotlight for fucking years, and then all of a sudden they get a chance. That's not overnight, though, right? Because they've been working out in the spotlight, outside of the spotlight for so long.
Sure.
Most of the time, I find that, and this sounds maybe cocky, but sports, acting, anything that you really want to do, you can do if you have time. Let's say I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I would have no doubt that I could be the best in the world if I had started training when I was 6, right? It's time and commitment. I can commit myself pretty well to anything I set my mind to.
Yep.
It's the same for acting. It's the same for anything you really want to be. And I think people think it's this God-given talent or God-given opportunity that you have to do that. It's not. It's just like any other business where shit happens. There's ups and downs, and so business, in my eyes, is similar. It's very similar, but it's not looked at as such. If you keep going, at least, just like in business, if you have somewhat of a brain on you and you're not fucking up the business, eventually you will hit something where you're getting some money, right? It's the same way in acting. If you have some talent, if you have some kind of something and you're at it for long enough, eventually some shit will hit, right? And I think it's similar in business.
So I think it's funny you said that. I think 100% right and you're spot on. But I was thinking about this the other day where when you look at acting, you're right. You can learn to do that. I think athletes are a little different, though, right? Because athletes, you got to love it.
Yeah.
Going into it. I guess same thing with acting. I don't want to judge it, but when you're acting, I think everyday life is acting, right? So I think we act, right? I think everybody or anybody out there, you have to. Actually, I was talking about this the other day with somebody. It was an actual police officer back in the day I used to work with. And we said, for school, I think they should teach acting for kids because I think you have more acting in life than you do algebra.
Yeah.
Let's say,
for
right?
sure.
Because you have to be able to sell yourself in some lines, right? And that's acting.
Sure.
That's acting classes that you should go. So, but it's interesting that acting is like an everyday
thing.
You're doing that since you were a baby.
Everyone can act at some level, right? And
sure.
that's when
I'm not knocking anybody that's an actor. In no way would I say that.
Shit, I kind of am to some level.
That's awesome.
I think there is a part where in Denmark you'll see the same actors in all movies because they have to go to the Royal Acting Academy to be picked as like a celebrity actor. In America, if you and me wanted to make a movie today and we had the money, let's say we want to put $200 million into a movie, boom, and we put us as the lead roles, movie's there, and that's how that gets done. And there's a lot of singers who will make a movie here and there and here and there, so everyone can kind of do that shit if you're in the position of doing it, right? So there isn't a lot of skills behind it. I think we praise that a lot more than is.
So what is it then? Is it more memory skills, or is it like acting, or is it?
I think so. I haven't actually done acting like that. I think fuck memory, but you can do that too.
Because you have to learn the lines.
Yeah,
right?
you just learn the lines and say it enough times until it sounds good.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess you're
but
right.
there's different levels to everything, right? Like just like I was saying in Denmark, they go to the Royal Acting Academy, and that's a passion, right? And there's skills to it and all of that stuff. But there's also a very amateur side of that gets a lot of praise.
Did you ever go to acting school or no?
I did classes, yeah. The classes, actually, they help. Like you were saying, I think everyone can actually benefit from that. Yeah. Got me more comfortable in being myself. And it was like scream on the top of your lungs and shit like that, stuff like that.
Hitting vocal cords that you never thought you
had. Yeah.
Like that, right?
Because when's the last time you really screamed on the top of your lungs, right? Like that was a good time. but I wanted to take that route for the longest, and I wanted to do that, and I just realized that you can, but there's not going to be a lot at the end of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. You know, you can't. It's silly in the scheme of things.
Sure.
You're a grown man and you're playing out a.
Another
It's
role,
silly
huh?
to me, right? You can only go so far, and where business,
So-
there's acting involved too.
But in acting, like, is there a? Are they doing it for art, or are they doing it like?
I don't think so today. You know, most of the Marvel movies and all that other stuff, it doesn't seem like Broadway for sure. You know, stuff like that, because they're getting paid not a lot, right? And they're hustling their ass. So I think stuff like that is for the art of it. I don't think Marvel Studios and all that other shit is not for the art of it.
Sure,
Maybe.
okay.
I don't know. You know.
Yeah, you're not
maybe.
playing Batman for the
Nah.
art. You know.
I don't think so.
That's
I'm playing
interesting, yeah.
Batman for Batman.
Yeah, no, that's
You
right.
know?
Yeah. it's-
But, you know, I think sports, so this is something a lot of people don't know. When I was in 8th grade, I had a full scholarship to Loyola, and I was on the U18s team in beach volleyball here. I couldn't play on the team because I didn't have my citizenship yet, but I could practice with them. And this was with 18-year-olds. So
cool.
I had been playing volleyball from a very,
How
very
old are you?
young age. I was in 8th grade, so 12, 13.
yeah.
And I'd been playing it since I can remember, right? And we were trained by the national teams in Denmark, me and my partner, so we were very, very good at our age.
So
But when
volleyball is 2 people, or is it 4?
Two
8?
people at
Okay.
beach volleyball, and then you go into indoor, which is more 6 on the court.
Okay.
But at that point in 8th grade, I had the same realization as I had with the acting. I was in 8th grade. I was driving 2 hours to get out of the city every single day for private club training and then for the national team training.
Sure.
So it was a bunch of work. But also these 18-year-olds who was finishing high school, and whenever I would play, and I was in 8th grade, so they would almost bully me because I was taking playing time from them, and they were in the scouting season of things, right?
Sure.
And same with the national team. So I quickly got sour with that, but I also realized if I'm in 8th grade and I'm doing this with 18-year-olds, then how far can I really take this, right? What's the maximum of this? I know you can take it far, right? You can become an extreme athlete,
Sure.
but I knew first of all, I had picked volleyball, not a great money maker.
I was going to say, there's not really a money
Nah.
maker in volleyball, right?
So, and I think once
Sponsorships
you've
out
wasted that time, sports is one of those things where you need to be that committed for that
without
amount
doubt.
of time,
Yeah,
right?
without doubt.
So I didn't do sports, and then I figured business, right? Networking.
So let's get back to New York. You're in New York. You're living that life. When do you decide to get into real estate? Like, what was the first thing you did besides real estate? Where you're acting still, and you know, whatever it is. I don't know if you're financially making it in the acting world just yet, or do you decide, let me become a waiter, a bartender, you know, stockbroker? What is it?
Yeah, I learned that people were getting paid to know these groups of people, right, and bring these groups of people to these kinds of clubs and being in those circles. So
you're sort of like a promoter in some way.
yeah, basically. So I started familiar myself with sort of the different modeling agencies and the different modeling houses. I sort of grew my network like nothing else within the modeling industry. So I could bring a lot of models, and then I started knowing the celebrities and the higher end clients. And what that did was I could organize, let's say you had a table here in a nightclub. I would tell the nightclub I have a group of, let's say, 20 going. Prior to the nightclub, I would go to a dinner table, and this restaurant would pay me 10 grand to bring this amount of people there that are pretty and whatever else, and you get a contract with them. So I would do that here, and this would all be free. And then we would go to another contract that I had with the nightclub. The nightclub says it's a minimum of 100 grand.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they would say it's a minimum of 100 grand. If you can bring someone with 100 grand, everything above that you earn. So I would contact one of the higher end clients or one of the celebrities. They would want to come because I had this army of models that they could come out and party with and spend money with and in front of, right? So that's really how the money was made, was getting a client to buy the services essentially, right, and have a good time. And they would contact me for it consistently. And I really just tried to find partnerships and individuals whom needed business, I guess, or needed a service that I could provide within my network.
Wow.
And that's where that sort of clicked, right? And once that started, I would meet people from restaurant businesses, hotel businesses, real estate, private jets, all types of different things, right? Concerts, festivals. And what I realized quickly was there's a specific group in New York that not a lot of people have access to. That group can make or break anything, right? Because you get this group to follow or post or talk about and put it in the right ears, they make everything.
I was
Like
just saying this to somebody.
that's like the nay or yay, right?
Yep.
And once you have that group and they're willing to follow you to different events and parties and stuff, now you control a pretty significant force of influence, right? And I recognized that pretty early on, so I started taking advantage of it. In real estate, really my body couldn't keep up with the nightlife. I was having too much fun.
Has to be taxing. Oof.
It was taxing, and I got into the drugs and stuff like that. I'm happy to talk about it. I got into that side, and it got pretty dark pretty quickly, right? So, I figured, how can I use this network? I sort of took a step back. How can I utilize this network without fucking myself up, right? Without doing this taxing thing. And real estate seemed like something that I tried to figure out what can every single individual in my network, even though they're in different industries and different shapes of or forms of life, right? What do they all need that I could provide? Real estate seemed like the only service where I could quit this high net worth celebrity group and still keep my title as an important, half wealthy sort of guy, right? Where I could say, I'm in real estate now, and they don't know that I'm over here doing rentals and all this other stuff, right? So that seemed like the only option where I could utilize the network and keep my status. So I went there. So I did real estate, and before
I decided to go get licensed and become a real estate.
Exactly. Before I did anything with this network, I took 2 years of just doing nothing but rentals and honing my skills, really. So I disappeared, really.
So you're not going out anymore? You're just working?
Not going out anymore, not doing anything. I just did that. Waking up at 4, going to sleep at 11. I did that. No New Year's, no Christmas, no nothing. Just 2 years of straight up that. And I loved it, actually. It was a great time. It really was. But once I felt like I had really crafted that and like I had honed those skills, then I went into that network. And that was a surprising amount of success very quickly, right? I had some guidance so that when these bigger sums and amounts of money would come, I could still get some help from the people I was around at that time. But the 2 first deals that I did around that time was around $50 million each.
Wow.
Yeah.
First real estate deal.
First real estates outside of rentals, right?
Yep.
So that was a pretty significant amount. People they talk about this because there was $100 million that I did the first year, and that was like a big thing. What they don't know is it was just about 2 deals.
That's awesome. Where'd you get these contacts from? Was it just from your old network? And
that was from that, right? And then I started going into the modeling agencies and saying, if any of the models or any of you guys need real estate help, I have this and I can offer you this. And then I went and found a building that was willing to not go so deep into the application process, basically, and take these models on a short-term basis. And then I found a deal that the building was willing to give, and I just mix-matched those to the modeling agencies and did the modeling apartments, stuff like that. I then also started to rent these apartments and have girls live in them, basically my own modeling apartments, and also for guys, where I orchestrated it so you can live here for free, but you now have to go out to these nightclubs. So they would do that. So they would basically, without me being there, right? And they would host, and they would all make money involved, and they could live in New York for free. And I was making some money from that, and that was orchestrating in the background.
It's pretty amazing. I never even knew that. That's pretty cool.
That way, it was sort of a win-win for everyone, and they could go out 3 times a week, and they would have access to everything, and they would live in New York for free at that point, and I would get paid.
This is a silly question, but you're talking about different things that you do in life and where it leads to. How many people stay on the straight and narrow in that life where it's they know how to party and they have a few and they're able to control it?
Not a lot. Not a
lot. Right?
Nah,
it's
like
sad.
mine wasn't either, because I think there was one guy I always if his name is Isaiah, and he's still there today, but he was able to do it completely sober. Just go out and be out till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. every night, and just be like the life of the party still. And I think that's how you have to approach it. We were just so young that when we entered it and we approached it, we didn't have that mindset.
I was gonna say, yeah,
It was
hard
fun,
to.
right? Like we were like, we're just gonna go in and have the most fun we can every night, and that results in pretty quick burnout, right? What I didn't realize was that same mindset. This was very early on. That same mindset of dealing with issues and problems had dragged over to the business side of it. So if I would have had a drink or I would take a certain drug for a certain emotion back in those days, I had adapted that so early on that I would do the same thing in business, right? So if I was dealing with stress, I was dealing with something like that. Something I would have a drink, right? Or I would have a drug, I won't say which, but I would have something, right, that would mend that. That was my go-to for that. And I ultimately, I had created a schedule almost of how could I function the best, right? I was seeing these issues that was going on in business, and my body was having limitations. I can wake up at 4, yes, but then can I go to sleep at 2, right? What can I do to the maximum to maximize everything? And I tried to make a regimen, and this is coming from this lifestyle, right, where I knew I could stay longer up if I was taking something, and I could have more fun if I was, doing this and this. And I tried to implement that to business. It went bad really quickly.
I was gonna say that has to, right?
Very quickly.
Different life.
A very different life, but it worked for some. Right, it worked for a little bit until it didn't. And at that point, I had to withdraw from a lot of different things.
Well, I think you see it a lot in our world too.
Yeah,
I don't want to call anybody out, but you see it.
It's everywhere.
It is. It really is.
It's
and I don't party. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. But I know people, and I don't judge them. It's just the way it is. That's the way life is. I used to drink. I think I told you the story, and I had a bad experience where I was coming home and I was, I had a little too few many, and was almost in a car accident, and all I remember seeing was the little kid's face looking at me.
Yeah.
And that would sober you up fucking quick.
Yeah.
Especially as a cop, and what the hell am I doing? And then I just said, you know what? It's not for me anymore. And I stopped drinking, and I just did it that way. And it was, but it's hard because the networking. It's more about the drinking.
But I think we're going a good way in today's world. I think more and more people don't actually drink. I feel like at least
that. See that. Yeah.
In higher end circles, at least, right?
There's nothing wrong with it.
There isn't. There isn't. Yeah. And to be completely out there, I was out there. Like I was fucking out there, right? I needed to go to rehab. I was in rehab 4 times. What's interesting about that is I realized in my head that what I thought, just like when you're working out, you can work towards something, body can grow, and it's never really done evolving, right? You can press the limits, you can get bigger and bigger, you can do whatever you want. There are a lot of people, me included, didn't know that was the same thing for mentally, not just physically, but for mentally. You can grow and you can learn a lot, right? Once you become an adult, you sort of think, I'm done. This is who I am, this is my mindset, and that's that. Right. You think you're either smart or you think you're stupid, whatever that may be, but you compress that envelope a lot. And when I got sober, I met all these individuals, and it forced me to look inside my own head, right, and take some accountability. And a lot of it was taking daily inventory, sort of what you do in a company, right? You see, what can I fix here? What can I do here that doesn't work? And what can I fix to implement new things and make it better? Right. And I started doing that every single day. So every single day I'd wake up, I said, this is what I want to do today, something that I'm flawed at. This is what I want to make better. And at the end of it, but you have to be really honest with yourself and say, how did today go here? Did I lie here? Was I doing, this here? So you have to be crucially fucking honest with yourself,
a lot
right?
of accountability.
Yeah. But what that did was I grew from that on a scale I didn't think was possible. Wow. And I do that every day, right? I think there's so many boundaries we just have to push through, and you'll be able to, like something as simple as my vocabulary, and you mentioned this the other day, it was nothing near to what it is today. Now, English isn't my first language, but
talking about this.
I grown so much more than I thought I was able to do, right? So I tried to think of it like, working out. You know, you can grow your brain just like you can grow your muscles in your body and whatever else.
100%.
And I think people cap themselves very quickly at that. But that forced me to take a very deep look at everything that I was doing, right?
And we were talking about the dictionary.
Yeah.
Like how people study that. I think
Yeah,
we mentioned Eminem.
Correct.
In that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's interesting because I think that's the mindset of today is that, you know, you are just who you are and you can't really change that.
Sure.
And you're born with a certain amount of brain cells and shit, but you can push that envelope a lot.
A lot.
But I think if that stuff didn't happen, I don't regret it because that wouldn't have gotten me to where I am today.
What'd you say?
Right?
You don't regret it?
I don't regret it, because otherwise I wouldn't have had that realization, right? I think I would have been a completely different person if that stuff didn't happen.
So all of this happens. You end up in real estate. And now you're going full tilt. You're doing what you have to do. I don't want to bring up other companies or anything like that unless you want to talk about them.
Yeah.
But you end up in going different directions. What would you say? Let's talk about the networking in real estate.
Yeah.
How important is that in the real estate game to have a big network the way you have it?
I think it's the number one thing, right? I think all the real estate stuff, all the like shit you can learn, anyone can learn. Truth be told. I think if you have leads, but that goes for anything, any business really, right? If you have a lead flow or you have individuals who want something and they come to you for that, if you're a problem solver, if you can solve someone's problem, then you're going to be just fine in today's world, right? But I think network, it's not so much about real estate. Don't promote real estate, at least in my book. I never really tried to promote the real estate because all of us can do somewhat the same thing when it comes to that, right? It's just about being the guy who pops up in that mind's head when they think about real estate. No one is thinking this guy, maybe some are, right? But no one is like, this guy can do it a million times better than that guy. It's the same as the modeling part where once you reach a certain level, it could be anybody. Right. Okay. And that's how I looked at it, where it's like it has to be, they have to like me more than that person. Right. There's a money aspect to it now where certain situations they're actually just that shitty or we're that great, whatever it may be. But there is aspects to that. Right. Yeah, for sure. And there's services that you can offer that makes you superior to others. Right. But I think network in real estate it's important.
I was amazed again. The first day I meet you, it was funny, Matt. We end up in the restaurant.
Yeah.
We were having a soda or whatever, or coffee or whatever it is, and we're hanging out, and we end up going to Texas, and we met up that morning. I remember, just sitting there, and I'm trying to look at the land and just trying to see where I'm at and getting involved, and that's what I do. I lay out the area first, and I scope. But I guess it's the police officer, remember, still to analyze this, where you're at. And then I remember seeing this. I think I asked you this once. Is this more from the network or from other things where you started getting noticed from the public? I remember downstairs, and we were down in the lobby of the building, and I remember sitting there, and a couple of people are coming up to you.
Yeah.
Is that more from your network of that, or was it from other things?
No, it's a good question. I think so. There's the show, right? I did the Netflix show. Prior to the show, what I had done was it was a lot of social media and it was a lot of network. So in New York City in itself, to the public.
So were you an influencer more than? I just say that.
Yes, but how I would say it is, in New York, everyone knew me that needed to know me. Right.
Okay.
So that circle of those people knew me, and it was more tight knit. It was elite and masses. I hate to say it like this, but quantity and quality. Right. This was the quality that knew me there. If you put it in those aspects, it's easier. It wasn't the masses. And when I say the masses, it's not necessarily worse than the elite. I'm just putting those into perspective. But at that point, it was tight-knit, right? And there's a benefit for quality because it's more expensive, right? And you can utilize that. Right. But I didn't have the masses yet, right? And to me, pulling up to Texas with you, for someone to recognize me there, it would have to be masses, right? Yeah. And what the show did for me was definitely open up the door to the masses, right? But I think at that point, when I was going into the show, I probably had 200, 300,000 followers at that point still, right?
So how'd you do that?
That is really just that network that I was in prior, right? So I was doing the fashion shows. I was on some covers of magazines, and I had a girlfriend who was just a very famous person and stuff like that, right? So I was in those circles already. I just wasn't the celebrity, so to speak. I was a byproduct.
How'd you utilize that to get
That-
it done?
that- that's
just by being there, you end up getting all those-
Collaborations, right? So it would be without it being an official collaboration, but I'm on this person's story, I'm on this person's Instagram, I'm at this event, and with this event, and
That
I
it automatically
mentioned
clicking to follow you because
exactly,
of that.
yeah. So it was basically by association, right? If you
Interesting.
do that enough, you become a celebrity yourself. Someone like Kim Kardashian, right? That was her whole thing.
Yeah.
I think she was on the Paris Hilton something show, and then she eventually did it, right? But I realized that, but I was still missing the masses, right? I didn't have the masses, and that's a hard thing to do.
That's kind of funny to say that though. You had 300,000 followers, 200 to 300,000 followers.
Mhm.
That's not what's the masses like? 1,000, like
Masses, millions. I think millions. I still don't have the masses, but what the show did, and when that came along, I was reluctant at first, but I realized I need to get my foot in the door.
Yep.
Right, and to get my foot in the door, this was a good opportunity to do so.
Sure.
Once I did that, it opened up almost for 2 months straight. It was individuals from all across the globe calling me with either business opportunities or looking for business opportunities. So it's sort of a list on both sides, right? And the business opportunities, what I started just to do. Is this me? This is me. This is actually Bernie. But no, what's it called? The business opportunities would start lining up, and the people were looking for them. And I did the same thing. I just started sort of crossing them over and connecting them with each other,
Sure.
right? So I saw that as an opportunity where, and that's not something I could have done by myself, right? That's really what that added to me. I don't think the masses, so to speak, still didn't really do much for me. Like for these people to be in Texas and coming up to me
It's
and
not
stuff.
gonna really do much for you.
No,
They
right?
just want a picture. or
Yeah,
whatever it
and
is.
it wasn't. I didn't see a huge benefit like that. I think I already thought pretty highly of myself.
Sure,
Probably,
course.
I don't know if I needed that per se, but I did realize that that's a hard thing to do without something like that, without that form of promotion. And you have a huge advantage over others that do not have that. Where it blurs the lines in today is this real or is it not? And now when people are spending money to find out who the best real estate agent is or where should I park my house, right, and make a lot of money, do I go with the promoted people and the shows and the celebrities, or do I go with, just the non-promoted, basically, right? And I think it's a scary gray area there because you don't know what you're seeing and or doing, right? These companies, the company that I was with at the time, if you look at, and this I was amazed at when I went to Texas, right? If you look at what they make on a yearly basis, and this is the company that if you see any of these companies, any of these shows, if you see them on a show, you would think this is number one.
Sure.
This is the world's best by far, right? They're the most followed, they're the most all of that. They're the most,
Just everything.
they have, right? They're like the
They got that
cream of the
image,
crop,
yeah.
all of that stuff, and it looks amazing. But then you look at what a company makes yearly, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but at Keller Williams, which we don't have that as of yet, but we will. Keller Williams, if you look at the yearly for that, I think it was 600 billion. The closest to that was 100.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the closest to it, right? But 600 billion, and most of these smaller ones that are
We
in
have
New-
close to 200,000 agents in our world.
exactly,
Yeah, so that's the other-
exactly.
yeah.
And this is what I
Real
was
estate, yeah.
so fucking amazed by when I went to Texas. I didn't know this existed.
Yep.
This amount of powerhouse, right? Because I thought, just like everyone out there today watching these shows, thinks this is number one, right?
Mhm.
Whatever they're showcasing. But in real life, reality and these shows are so far from each other, right? Because on paper, Keller Williams, it's and this isn't to be
not
cocky or
knocking it,
anything.
nah,
It's
yeah.
just it's so out of proportion, right? We're winning by a long landslide in that realm. And the sheer sales force, when they talk about reach and network, right? Yes, it's important for the agent to have a network, but any Keller Williams agent has a network of that 200,000 agents,
Right.
technically, right? And those agents have their own networks. Most agents in other brokerages, you're talking 200, a couple thousand agents here and there, right? Or
Maybe a
max
thousand.
10,000.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest. So in comparison, it's not even close.
That's right.
Not even fucking close. And I realized that when I came and met with you and met with Gary, and it was, even with my network, that's nothing compared to that, right? So adding that onto my business is tremendous, right? Because I can now utilize this power behind me, and I think that was a good realization of network and what that means. So I still believe that the individual person, yes, it's important to have network, but if you can be behind a company as an individual in the beginning of real estate, you need that,
Sure.
right? You need that. If you can do that and utilize it. And I gotta say, Keller is just the best for that.
So why did it? Let me ask you another strange question, and it's not even a strange question. It's just curiosity, I guess. Where before we met, were you thinking of Keller, or did you not even? Because that's the interesting thing. It was 200,000 agents, and we're probably the best kept secret, right? Because we don't like to brag on each other, and it's so we don't tell our story. For, especially in the city, I don't think we really get our story out there because we don't. And it's kind of like you're basically patting yourself on the back for doing this great job, and you don't want to be known that way. I don't want to self-brag or anything like that. So it's hard to do to get your story out there.
Yeah.
But when you're going on that angle, before Matt reaches out to you and we start talking, did you know what Keller Williams was? Because you said you were very surprised.
I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. I knew the name, and I think everyone knows the name. Everyone knows the name. But no, I didn't. Not to that extent. When Matt reached out, first of all, I like Matt.
Yeah, it's great guy,
I like Matt. But then I really started digging into it. And I had already taken a step back from the other brokerages. I created my own, technically, my own company. And I wanted to do this different approach to real estate. So I had actually drawn back from that. And until Matt came along and Keller came along and we started having conversations, I didn't think it possible with a brokerage today. Right, until Keller was really introduced to me. And once we started having conversations, me and Matt, I think I realized the scale of this, right, and the scale of the opportunities and abilities that come with it. But the hard part, and I think with Keller, because when we went to Texas, a big part, like when I was astonished by this, it was that zero money on marketing, right? And that was a big piece was that there's zero money in marketing, yet we're winning by this lot, right? And we're controlling
crazy, right?
by this lot. And it is crazy. But what that does is it makes when we're that big, it doesn't really matter, so I understand it. But it does make the competition that can shine and does a ton of marketing in New York, it makes them seem like to some of these publics that they're on top, right? And they're beating us by that. But
That's pretty insane, though. Like all of this, no marketing at all.
It's insane.
Top,
it's
right?
Nuts, right? But I understand why you wouldn't, right? Because why need to? We're not getting beat. Right?
Right.
There
So
isn't really competition. But I think
because we're taught to keep our expenses down, and build,
But I think if that gets added, and mostly why I'm a big advocate for letting their achievements know to the world, right?
Sure.
Like if I'm achieving something, you're gonna know about it. And I think I saw this that I could really bring to Keller, right? And I saw with Keller having the amount of just sheer force and name that it has, me being able to add this and not having shame in going out and boasting about this, combining those two is a whole nother level, right? And even today, without marketing, they don't have to market it. They just have to make it known. That's it. Sure. We don't need to market it. I think but it is, you're right. There is that secret, and that does make it, there's something there, right?
But wouldn't that secret be the thing that, right? Because you think about this in different ways also. Isn't that secret what makes Keller Keller? Right?
That's the issue, right? And that's what I agree. I agree to a certain degree. But no, it can't be. It can't be. Nah, it can't be. I think Keller is Keller for a lot of different reasons.
Oh,
that
yeah,
I
I
didn't
agree
understand.
with that. But isn't that the mystery behind it that nobody knows really about it? Not that nobody knows about it. I don't want to say it that way because that sounds horrible.
But they don't know what's behind it. They don't know what's behind it. You're 100% right. And I think when I went to Texas and I met with you and I met with Gary, it's a different kind of thing. I still can't really explain it but I left there feeling more motivated than I ever have. I felt like it's a whole different conversation. It's another level of it was different. I can't really put it into words, but it was great. It really was.
So take me through that. Now, I was in some of the conversation. Let's talk about that. We get there. What was that experience like?
This is one of those things where I think you're saying what's the secret with Keller, right? Is they have these individuals that are just not, they don't care about being on the shows. They don't care about this other shit. And that's mainly because they do not need to. Right? Someone like yourself and someone like Gary, there's just no, truth be told, it would be nothing but negativity. I think when it comes to Keller and that secret, what that really is, I don't know if it's a secret, yes, but there's also the reason why it's not promoted and we're not on these shows is because individuals like yourself and Gary and whoever else is involved are of such a magnitude that there is really only negative things involved with being on a show like that. The plus sizes, all the pros wouldn't really, it wouldn't be worth it. All the pros, it simply wouldn't. There's so many risks with being promoted in the bad light and all that other stuff. And I think that's why we don't have that. It's simply because there's too much risk shining a light there and handing it into other people's control, and they could alter that, right?
Hey, that's one of the big things I said to you. One of the things that scares me is that.
Yeah, sure.
It's, I don't like being in the public eye. I just, something about me, I just don't like it.
Well, I think if you have a lot to lose, I think the problem with reality TV today is that, and me included in this realm, but I knew I needed that foot in the door, and this was a great for me to do it. But it's mostly individuals who you're picking that.
But me too is, I'm sorry to cut you off, John. My thing is this too, with my position, and this is nothing against anybody out there. I hope I don't want to come off like I'm knocking anybody in any way or anything like that. I just feel that in my position, I shouldn't take up your spotlight. Right. I think my spotlight is as being the managing partner, the operating principal, and being trusted by my agents that work with me, is that I'm not going to go out there and take what's yours, because that's what you're in the business to do. You're out there to sell real estate and make money. And I think my job as a broker or as an OP is to help you grow your world, not grow mine. So to me, to get my name up, people know me. The people that need to know me know me. Yeah. I want your name out there. And again, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody that does this. The guys that run teams, the gals that run teams that do this, God bless you. I know what you're doing. And kudos, I want to see you guys kill it.
But that's the killer secret right there, I think, right? Is that someone like yourself, someone like Gary, they're not hungry to get their names out there. And I realized this when I came on board, right? Is that you have this support by these individuals like yourself that it's not there. Real estate is very much a one-man show most of the time, right? And it's about being in the spotlight and so on. But I think you're probably right. That is somewhat the killer secret, because most of the time, once there is a spotlight, you have to compete for the spotlight. Right? Once it's there, even if you're just taking up a little bit, you're taking away from someone, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I agree. Yeah, to a certain degree.
Yeah, because if I'm noticed out there, and I think it's just the way it is, right? I would have the upper hand in a way, being the owner of the company, to compete. I don't think that's right. And it's just, to me, and again, it's only my thought of it. And I get it. You're working with other people. And all that. It's just that, like I said, I would rather you all get it as opposed to me. And there's so many of us out there that it's so hard to get that recognition. Why should I be the one?
I mean, it's strange in real estate, because you're right. Any other business, it would be just like you're saying, right? The CEO would eventually, he would want it to flourish based on the other individuals. Right? But in real estate, it seems like owners nowadays, they run it kind of like a team, right? It's not really they run it so that you generate the leads and you generate the fame, and then you have whatever else underneath you, and you pass it and you delegate that way, right? And you streamline it and create a funnel through yourself, right?
Correct.
If you were to do that, it would have to all spotlight on you, all marketing on you, and that's what's being done, right? And that's because I think that model is a safe bet, but it also benefits you hugely.
Yeah,
and it's not really again, no shade to anything, but it is just, what it makes is, truthfully, it's a shitty business plan. It's a very shitty business plan. And because it just, once you're out of the picture, let's say, if you want to step down If you want to not be in, you can't. There's not. Then the whole thing is done, right? And no one underneath you learns anything. They're not generating leads. They're not doing business. It's you technically, right? And yeah, it's a strange business model.
Yeah, I was talking another model where it's similar, where you're obviously getting. It's people dependent on you.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes that same addiction where they can't. They can't go on their own and do it, so they have to depend on you. They're constantly on you, so they're feeding off of you. So
there was an interesting, and not to cut you off, there was an interesting, this was when we were in Texas. It was either you or it was Gary that said it. Within Keller, there's 3 other billionaires that have been made within the company. And I think that was huge, right? This is coming from Gary's a billionaire, I would assume. And, you know, he himself, and within Keller, there are businesses that are flourishing, right? Like flourishing. There we go. Underneath him, and I think that was a huge point in my head. Also to see that they're allowing you to do this, right, and grow your own brand, and to do that within a business is pretty amazing.
It is. It's pretty cool when you really look at the whole way
really
it's done and all. So you're getting down there and you see Gary and you're talking to him and you obviously kept that going. You talked to him quite a bit, I'm sure.
I do. I try to.
what does that look like? And again, what do you not to take anything away from it, because that's between you and him, all that, but where do you see your world going now that you're part of Keller Williams? And you're just getting started here, right?
Yeah.
We literally just getting started, you know, where we're starting to go full force, and I'm already seeing like head waves, and you're moving along, and it's going great. But where, 6 months from now, where do you see it?
6 months from now, that's a good question. I think we've had a lot of discussions, right? I think there is, in terms of opportunities, there's a lot, right? We can do most things. My problem right now.
How about technology? Because we were talking about this in the car, right? Where do you just see? Let's start there. Like technology, besides the real estate, where do you see technology being within the next 6 months? Because we were talking about Dubai, and we were talking about this.
We have a lot of different projects, and I've brought these up to you in the past. When I pulled away there for a little bit, I picked up on all of these other businesses, right? We done some funding, we made some partnerships, and those were big, and some were in Dubai and Texas and other places. And what that allowed me to bring to the table with Keller is we're bringing in sort of a lot of different individuals who control a lot of different companies in tech. I think a big part in real estate, but also just in general, that's going to happen, and what we will adapt in those 6 months is the banking system, and this we were speaking about this briefly. They're going to come in, and I'm seeing this happening already. There was a couple of different purchases that were done in these Bitcoin formats. And what that does is, I don't know if you've ever dealt and done that deals, and I've tried, but it's not really it's not my realm. But basically, these guys, it's a company in Canada, and they found out a way to basically do a Robinhood, right? So Robinhood, it's an app. I'm sure everybody here knows it. It's an app where you can go in for basically amateur investors and go in and invest a little bit, $5, $10, without being an accredited investor. And you can do it for free. A little fee here and there, but something like that, and there's billions of dollars within the app. What we thought about was, we have all these projects that are coming in and opportunities that we want to be a part of, and you know, to be a part of it, you need money. So let's say you're an individual in school. You're coming into New York, and you're an NYU student. You want to be a part of things here and there and little projects, but you don't know much about it, right? What you can do is, they've tokenized. It's going to be an asset, basically a wallet or a coin that you can buy initially, or essentially, and that coin will be attached to a project, and that project can be one of the new developments that we're a part of, and you would essentially be a part of the new development investment just by buying into this coin asset. And that coin asset is, I don't know if it's considered liquid, but you can be a part of it by any sort of dollar amount, right? $50, $100. And what that does is, you can, if we make this coin, and that's there, and this is being tested over the next 6 months, but what that does is it creates basically a crowd-funded pool of assets where we promote this asset class, which is a coin, let's say people are buying into it and they want to be a part of it, and you're promoting it in a way that of course has to be true and it has to be very, very valuable and it has to make sense financially, right? But once we are part of a diverse portfolio of projects and enterprises, the coin will essentially gain value because it's part of all of these different enterprises and projects that we're part of. And this is to my understanding, the knowledge of it, this is as far as mine goes, but that coin will eventually, it'll be like a crowd-funded bank that we have and that we can be able to allocate to these different projects and even to residential units, right? So if you want to be part of a sale, you can go in, buy this coin, and we can attach the coin to the sale of this apartment, saying this is going towards marketing. Right? If I don't have the money to market this unit, we go in and say, this is going towards marketing. You, as the buyer of the coin, is getting paid out once this sells from the commission, the percentage that's done there. So if someone isn't able to, if we need funds for any of those things, you can go in and attach this coin asset and they would get a percentage back on the fee. I see that as something huge. That's coming, but that will be tested and all types of stuff before we run it. The metaverse is another interesting one. Like I think we spoke about this a little bit. We are going to be doing a gallery sort of opening of this partnership and a lot of different things that we're doing. What we're trying to figure out right now is how to present it. What we were thinking about is creating and this is the Eden Gallery in Soho, but it's a big space. We are trying to create this partnership with Meta where we can use these AR glasses basically, and in front of, we want to do a painting that is, we'll pick different names, different up and coming stuff. That part doesn't matter as much, but it'll be a painting of the picture of an apartment, and you'll be able to purchase that painting and with it the apartment as well. But there'll be a AI headset in front of this painting picture. You'll be able to put that on in the gallery, in the studio, and then virtually walk the apartment right inside of it. And within that, we have a partnership with Core AI that we've been able to basically upload me into this headset, and I can say different presentations of the apartment. So I'm in there with you doing sort of a presentation of it. Now, I'm not live walking around and stuff, but there's some aspect to that, right? And that's a new just presentation form that I think will be huge. I think instead of
yourself in more than one place at one time,
but also, just like today where you can go into a store and you can buy clothes, it would be, instead of us being a real estate company and having a bunch of pictures of the apartments outside, I think it'll be a gallery of just headsets and the pictures there. So you can actually walk into the real estate office, have an immersive experience, and go in and tour all of these houses while you're there, right? And then pinpoint which one do you want to see in person. I think that's a super cool idea that I think will happen.
I remember this idea has been out there for a while too, right? This isn't something we're just coming up with today. But how accurate do you think these are when you go back and see it later on? Because they were talking about in the future with this stuff where people are going to actually buy this way. I know Alan Zapadinsky with COVID, that's how he rented all of his apartments. It was similar to this,
Sure.
And then you're coming in and you're actually buying based on this. Now here's an interesting thing, because we were talking about this earlier too. I think the world's got to be we got to be really careful with technology, and this is why I want to do what we were talking about earlier. Is actually we have to also let the public be aware of things that's going on there with these scams that are out there with everybody getting scammed with the rentals and this and that. So with these virtual tours, that could actually come too, because if the wrong people get their hands on it obviously can do this.
It can be everywhere.
You're right. So it's crazy with technology. Like we were saying in the car, it's good and bad. Right? It can be used for good and bad. So I think every one of those things, you're now tying some kind of training mechanism to it, to the public, so they could also learn not to get scammed anymore and be that company that's also protecting not only the agents but also the public, and getting them aware of what the world is like, and having that tied into this in some way too.
I think Keller, again, where that comes up, it's the only company where we have the bandwidth to do that.
That's right.
A lot of the time, agents need money. You need to make money, and that's the concern. You need to go in there, you need to do it quick and pump them out, right? I think for me when I came on, there was almost like there was an AA group here, like for people with addiction and stuff like that within the company. There isn't that anywhere else, right? And there isn't a lot of the things that's at Keller, but it's just more, there's a bandwidth to reach out and help where there's help needed, right?
Oh, it's awesome.
And I think also for clients, right? And I think there's a huge, that will be a market in its own with that.
Huge.
Where prior, where you just needed to have a spyware or some kind, you know, or a fucking a wall blocker or some shit.
That's right.
Whatever they needed in the past, right, for your computer, you need to now be aware, because all of that shit, it's so, you and I can have this conversation on AI, right, and it'll be completely fake, augmented reality stuff. So, that's a dangerous future, especially with the coins and electric currency or cryptocurrency and all of that stuff. It's an interesting world we're heading into. I don't know with real estate. Real estate, I think we always need a place to live.
Yep.
Right?
Always gonna have that.
Yeah. So I don't know within the real estate industry in that realm. I think the next biggest thing is, like, I don't know. Do you think agents would be around in 20 years?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. I would say yes, because I guess in certain areas they would be. One of the interesting things, we were talking about this, is one of the reasons I bought New York was because of just that. You know, the last place to go, I think, would be New York, because people need, you know, people want to work with agents in New York. It's not, you know, we were talking about, you said to me earlier when we were eating lunch, what's the difference? Small differences between Long Island and New York City, and I think that's one of them too. Is in New York City, they want to work with agents. Yeah. Where, you know, you don't have the pushback.
No, you don't. You don't. There's a lot of that in Long Island.
Not a lot, but you have it. So it's scary when you have that, what it's going to become.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't have that in New York City.
No, you don't. But I think because in New York City, there's so many fucking problems that you have to. A lot of people don't realize that about real estate. You're not just opening a door.
Yeah.
You're putting out fires from contract signed to closing. There's nothing but roadblocks in your way,
Sure.
right?
And I think that's the same in Long Island and anywhere else.
Of course.
And I think the agents do an amazing job with that.
I think it's going to be too hard for like a computer to solve. I don't think that, not saying that a computer could probably do it, but there's too many interactions along the way where it would all have to be replaced by computers for that to work, right?
And how would that look?
It could. And even let's say a condo or co-op board, right? How does that work in New York? So I think we're a long way away from that.
But 20 years is a long time.
20 years is a long time, yeah.
So you don't know what the world's going to look like. Well, we were talking about it earlier. People are driving the self-driving cars now.
Yeah, those in 20 years, that's going to be
it's gonna be a
for
thing.
sure thing. Yeah,
It's going to be definite.
If you have a gas car, it's going to be a fucking ancient thing.
That's right. Even I have an electric
I'm still gonna have a motorcycle, I think, because the electric ones, it's just like a scooter. There's no gear.
Yeah.
On a motorcycle, at least. Cars, I guess, the same thing. There's almost no cars with gears anymore.
But the strange thing is, the car, like my car, I got the hybrid. It is, and
hybrid. How does that work? Switches from gas.
Yeah, it's electric.
Okay.
It's, you know, when you charge it up, and then you get an extra 50 to 60 miles to the car, and it saves on gas. I'll tell you that much. But the interesting thing is, it's when it's in the gas mode, the fucking thing is fast, man. That thing is, oh my god, it's a different kind of car.
See, that's the thing. But there's also because they don't make any sound. Like,
there's no sound, so you don't even know if it's on.
On a motorcycle, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, you're going 80 and no one can hear you. There's a loud pipe save lives. There's that saying. Right?
No, you're right.
But I think that's. I remember there was these. Do you remember those scooters that was all over the city at one point? Revel or something like that. Yep. Took them off the street because they killed some golden girl or something that on the Upper East Side. But you could get on these things, and it without a driver's license or anything, you can just go. But I think it becomes almost too easy. It takes the fun out of it, for me at least. But I think motorcycles is probably electric car. I'd probably want that.
Yeah, I think so. It's gonna take some getting used to though, because again, I'm a gas guy. I want to be sure. I imagine me with an electric car. I'll be running out of fuel. I don't know where to go. It would be like, I'll be pushing my car along the highway. But I can see where it's going. It's gonna be interesting in the next 10 years. I think it's gonna be interesting. But real estate, I think we're secure for a little bit.
I think so too.
So
I think so too.
Now with you, because we got to wrap it up, and I'm definitely having you back because this
for sure.
went by. This 2 hours, hour and a half went by quick. So thanks for coming in.
Of course.
Look forward to doing this again. But you're in Keller. You're taking it off. What's a perfect world? Not financial wise or anything like that, but what does your team look like? Where are you looking to expand to? You're looking to stay in New York. You're looking to go to Texas. You're looking to go here. Right now, we talked about this. You're just going back into real estate, getting it going. What's this look like in the next next year or so?
I think
building your team.
Yeah. I think what we've talked about a lot too is we're focusing on real estate, right? We're focusing on the residential side, but also commercial. I think in a year from now, we're looking at New York on a very, very strong level. But I want to make it known the power and the force of Keller Williams, right? And not just for me, and this is going to sound corny, but I think for the real estate realm, that once you have the marketing in top notch, right, and you have the force and domination of Keller Williams as a powerhouse, those two mixed, there isn't a lot of competition. And I think the services that we can create and have bandwidth to create because of this is going to be really, really exciting to create. And I think it's a little early to say some of them, but for myself, I think we're looking at a team here, right, in New York that's going to be offering a ton of different services on buy and sales side that other companies and real estate teams haven't really offered before. I think we're going to see a route that's more streamlined probably, and this is something I wasn't allowed to promote prior, a lot of these things. That's something we're going to take and really go with. But I think New York, we do it first here with all of this, then we take it Chicago, California, and Miami, elsewhere. I think really Keller Williams, that best kept secret, it's time we open that up to the world.
Sure.
And I think it's going to be a very, very good year. I have no doubt.
I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes. I'm looking forward to seeing where you go. I'm excited to watch you grow. I'm excited to spend more time with you, to see where you're going, because might not be the smartest conversations, but they're pretty good.
That'll be good.
We're gonna have fun. But again, I really do look forward to watching where your career takes off. Again, thank you so much for being on this. Look forward to working with your brother. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.